Hey there folks, we are here with the Try It Yourself solution. We are adding the static method getNextID to our book class. So you'll notice that we already added the static counter int num, and we've added our instance variable book ID. We've added all those changes to our book class. So I'm just going to add our method, clean this up a little bit, underneath our constructor here. And this is going to be our getNextID method. So we want to be able to call this from outside of the book class. We need to make it public. It is going to be static because we are accessing a static variable. It's going to return the next ID, so it needs to return an int. And then the name will be getNextID. No parameters because we're not passing any information in. We're using this to get our static variable out. Now, I'm going to return here num plus 1. Because what I want to actually know is what is the next ID coming up. I'm not interested in what the current ID is. I actually want to know, okay, what's going to be the next ID? Now you'll notice that I'm not using plus plus because I'm not creating a book here. I'm actually just checking what the next ID is. And if I used plus plus, then every time I called getNextID, I would actually be updating this static field. And then when we created books, we would be getting IDs that kept jumping up because this num would have been updated each time we call getNextID. So we've added this in, let's save it, and then we will jump over to our runner here to test our code out. All right, so before I actually create my book, I want to print out book.getNextID. Here's calling the static method. Now you'll notice that I use a capital B and the name of the book class. So this is the name of the book class and the dot operator to access this static method. Now, my prediction here is that it should print out a 1 because ID starts at 0, but the next ID, or the first one we would actually get that's assigned, should be a 1. Then we create a book. Then I'm going to print out that book to see what it looks like. And then I'm going to print the next ID again to verify that this is working properly. All right, and so this should print out a 2. Let's try this. We get a 1, then we print out the BFG, and then we do get a 2. All right, so our static method is working properly. Hopefully you had the same results. At this point, you have the skills you need to go in and take on the coding activity for this lesson. Good luck. Congratulations, everyone. You've made it to the end of lesson 8, which is also the final lesson in this unit. One of the units that has the most new information in it. So I want you to take a step back now to think about what all have you learned in this unit? What concepts have you been introduced to that maybe help explain some of the things that you saw earlier in the class? Right? Think back to when you were creating your own shapes. You were actually calling constructor methods. Think back to when you were writing public static void main or writing your information inside of that method. That was a static method because you didn't actually need to create a class in order to use that method. All of these concepts that are explained in this unit should connect back to things that you've already seen, right? Remember when parameters are passed in and we again started to talk about how data type affects the behavior of different variables? All of these concepts are things that you've seen, and so I encourage you to take a minute to step back, look through all the lessons in this unit, and think about how those concepts have actually connected to previous units and the information that you already have been using.